Like you, I used to struggle a lot with public speaking. Being in front of a crowd, especially at a very young age, gave you that sinking feeling in your stomach. You know, the feeling you get where you feel like you're naked and everyone's making fun of you, that you're wasting everyone's time, when in reality, no one actually cares and they're probably not even listening to you. I was that stereotypical shy kid who hates crowds, attention, and people's eyes being on him. Can you relate? Of course you can, you clicked on the video. You and me, we're the same. So how did I go from being this shy kid to now confidently speaking in front of hundreds of people at a time? I'm going to share with you my 3-step formula, which comes from all that I've learned in the past decade. I'll tell you all the mistakes I've made so you don't have to, and a few key principles that really helped me become a much more confident speaker. And I promise that if you follow this video step by step, you'll see dramatic changes and be surprised at how easy it actually is. Well, it wasn't easy for me, but I didn't have this nice little video so I can refer to now, did I? Did I?
It's okay. Read.
Now in this video, I'm basically going to take you through my 3-step framework to take you from noob to a master communicator. And all you need to do is follow these 3 steps, which is accept, identify, and action. Let's start off with step 1. The first thing you need to do is acknowledge the problem, that you are indeed shy and maybe not the best public speaker, and that's okay. We're not all born naturals that can speak on a topic for days without stuttering or stopping or saying 100 arms and ahs in between each sentence. It's hard, I get it. Believe me, I do, I've been there. And if your goal is really to become a confident speaker, then the first step is to acknowledge your current limitation, because then you have something to work with. Because it's not just that you're inherently shy or you hate public speaking, it's just that you're not really good at it yet, and as a result it feels draining that you have to do it. Make sense? In other words, if you think for a second that if this was something you actually excelled at, you'd be so happy that you'd have this as an assignment instead of a 2,000 word essay or some group activity. When I first learned about this, I kind of wish I knew about it a lot earlier, because whether I like to believe it or not, I was in kind of a state of denial about it. So your first task is to really be honest with yourself and acknowledge that you don't hate being in front of a crowd. It's just that you're a little inexperienced, and as a result, you feel like you're going to mess up when you get up there and stumble against your own words and get red in the face. I can't even count the amount of times that I've experienced that. It's not a nice feeling, and you probably know what I mean. But you know what? I think that feeling you get is a good thing, because it's bringing to light the fact that you've acknowledged it. And believe it or not, just by acknowledging the problem, you're already a third of the way there. Because most people are stuck on this very step and are perpetually dreading every presentation they have to do. And they stay that way because it's easy. They tell themselves, I hate presenting in front of a crowd, rather than acknowledging that there can actually be something done about it systematically. And that's what step 1 is all about. To acknowledge the problem by asking yourself, does presenting suck, or do I suck at presenting? Or why do I dread public speaking so much? And really try to be honest with yourself. It's just you and your own thoughts, and you're not going to feel embarrassed, hopefully. Alright, excellent. You've accepted that there's a problem, whatever it is. It's now time to move on to step number 2, which is to identify the problem. And this builds from step 1. And I mentioned the problem isn't actually that you're shy per se. It's actually, why is it that you think you're shy? Not many people think about this really ever. But let's just do a thought experiment for a minute. I want you to ask yourself the following questions and genuinely spend a few minutes writing down the answers to each of the following questions. Question 1. Are you interested in the topic? And why? Are you excited to present the topic? Have you prepared more than is reasonably expected of you? Now your answer is probably going to be a little different to mine. So if you really want to get the most out of this, pause the video, take a second to write down a few lines for each question. Please do it. I know you haven't paused the video yet, but I promise it'll be worth your while. Alright, welcome back. Now I also did this little exercise myself, and here are my responses. And I wrote these in the perspective of me as a high school student who's almost getting ready to go to university. That is how I felt at the time. So question 1 was I interested in the topic? Now looking back, I think my default answer to this would be no. Generally in school or the first few years of uni, I got given a topic to present on, or at best I got to choose from a small list of topics. Now ideally you want the answer to this question to be a resounding yes. So if it is a yes for you, then well done, you can move on to the next question. But if, like most people, you found yourself saying no, or even leaning towards no, then I want you to think about why that is. So I'll give you an example. I remember in high school, we all had to do a speech on, is passive smoking bad for you? Now I remember absolutely dreading this. not because of the topic per se, but just the idea of having to do a speech. The idea of getting up there in front of my classmates and reading off some palm cards about a topic I didn't really care about much just seemed like not how I wanted to spend my Tuesday, you know? So I asked myself, why is it that I'm not interested in the topic? Well, for starters, I don't smoke, and neither did my friends. And I didn't really know the effects of smoking beyond what the average person knew from what they'd heard, or seen from those graphic images on the back of cigarette packs. And so the conclusion I came up with was that it didn't interest me because I had no emotional connection to it. Alright, that's good, we'll come back to that. But now let's focus on the second question, which asked if I was excited to present the topic. Now this one sounds a little similar to the first question, but to clarify, question 1 was more so for yourself, that is you being interested in the topic that you're researching into. But this question is asking if you're interested to present the topic to your target audience. And so my answer to this at the time was a solid no. Why would I be excited to present? I just told you I was dreading it, so if anything, it was the opposite of excited. I kind of just wanted it to be over and done with. Alright, perfect. So at this stage, I've addressed the first 2 questions, and both of them being a no. Now moving on to question 3, which was, have I prepared more than is reasonably expected of me? Thinking back, yeah, I would say so. I had looked into the topic, written an outline of what I was going to say, making sure I had good structure, prepared my palm cards and practiced the delivery. So yes, I would say I was quite prepared actually, but I'm not sure I'd say I had prepared more than was reasonably expected of me. Okay, so those were my answers. Again, if you don't have your own answers to these, please pause the video and write them down. And if you're really not bothered to do that, because I know at least half of you will ignore that advice and keep the video rolling, just try to briefly think about the last talk you had to give, or maybe it's one that you're preparing for now. Remembering the 3 key words: interested, excited, and prepared. Alright, now that we've identified the problems by answering those 3 questions, I'm going to take you through 3 actionable steps that you can take for each question to systematically address the problem. And it's through this step, which I like to call action, where the ball really starts rolling. Now, if you do the exercises in this step properly, I can't promise that you'll become a TED Talker by tomorrow, but what I can promise is that you'll develop the confidence needed to start mastering your talks. Let's revisit question 1. It was about, are you interested in the topic at hand? If you're in a situation where the topic is given to you, or at best you get to pick from a short list, and really none of them are interesting to you, then what do? The key here is to somehow find the connection between it and yourself, or someone or something that you care about. So going back to the topic of, is passive smoking bad for you? The first thing I'll ask myself is, do I know anyone that smokes? Or better yet, does anyone I know hang out with people that smoke? Well, yeah, actually one of my good family friends did so, and we were really close. Now, the second thing I ask myself is their life precious to me? Now, this is a bit of a woo question, but stick with me, because if I care about my friend's health and his overall life quality, and I want them to stick around, now all of a sudden I'm motivated. And recall, my response to the why was because I had no emotional connection to it, and I needed to find a way to change that. So the third thing I do is pretend that my friend will be in the audience, that I'm actually giving this talk to influence him. So I'd ask myself now, what would I do different? Or what different angles could I take when preparing my presentation in order to make it effective and moving? So at least it's different and unique from everyone else's. See, now I have reason to be interested. It's become personal, and that's what you want. You want yourself to have some emotional connection to the topic, however it is, because that will give you the motivation to find out, research, and learn more about the topic, to address it in an angle that no one really thought of before, where you're still addressing the main questions, but now you might talk about the pain of losing a loved one and how your talk is going to help them inform those people, or really your friend in the audience, of the risks and health implications, and maybe even moving enough for them to make a change. See, now you almost can't wait to do some research to find out all that you can about it, to put together a compelling presentation that you think will be valuable. Now, how much more interesting is that? Alright, now let's revisit question 2, which was about being excited to present the topic. This one was a big one for me, and I only realized the impact of this question much later in life. During my uni years, I was given 2 distinct pieces of advice from different teachers that really stuck with me. The first was from a mentor of mine, where during one of his classes, he saw that nearly everyone was very anxious to get up and present. And before we all started, he told us this: your classmates want you to do good. Because when I got up there, I felt like half of my brain was focused on reading my notes, and the other half was focused entirely on what everyone else was thinking and doing, just waiting for me to mess up so they can laugh at me or make some joke amongst themselves, where they would giggle and I have no idea what's going on. Then I would feel like I've messed up, and it's a vicious cycle. But what he was actually saying was that in fact it's the exact opposite of what I was thinking. Think of yourself in the audience. When someone is up there giving a talk, you actually want them to deliver it smoothly and not have to mess up and for it to be awkward, because then it feels awkward for you in the audience and you're not even the one up there. So that was an enlightening moment for me, where I felt like when I was up there, everyone that's actually listening to me actually wants me to do well. So damn it, I'm going to do well, and I'm going to give them a good presentation, and I'm going to deliver a lot of value so they get a lot out of it. So that was the first piece of advice, and that alone took me quite far. But there was another one, and this was just something that one of my PhD supervisors told me in one of my first ever meetings with him. And he said, look, by the end of your PhD, you will research and work on this topic so much that you'll be the only one in the world that knows this much about it, even more so than your supervisors. And that really struck with me, because up until then, I saw my university lecturers and professors as people that just knew everything about everything. And how was I, someone that just knew how to do few x-rays, was going to know more about a topic than my professor? But it was true, and it really made me think, because this wasn't necessarily confidence or presentation advice, but there was a connection there, because that's pretty much the same thing, right? I mean, I had to do multiple talks as part of my PhD, presenting the work that I'd done and what I'd found in the literature. How was this any different to any other presentation or speech I'd given in the past? And this is where that excitement factor becomes obvious. That if I'm the one that truly knows most about this very topic, even for a short period of time, then that puts me in an interesting situation. With great power comes great responsibility. And I felt as though it was my duty to tell everyone what I'd learned and researched on. And this made me super excited, because now I had some interesting information in my head that I couldn't wait to share with my audience, and that I couldn't wait to enlighten them all on what I'd found out. I was excited to tell them and share the message. And this was the essence of these first two questions, because I was now interested in the topic. That is, I had some emotional connection to it, however that may be. And I was excited to present my work, and that naturally gave me the confidence that I needed to nail my presentation. It's no longer like, oh, I hate this, I can't wait for this to be over. It's more like, wow, this is actually really interesting. I want to learn more about it and put my own take on it. Make the presentation more memorable. Maybe put a few funny things in there, because why not? And most importantly, I'm going to have fun with it. And so my 3 actionable steps in this question are: acknowledge that everyone wants you to do good. Think of your presentation as an opportunity to share exciting new things that you've learned with your audience who's dying to hear what you have to say about it. And 3, ask yourself, how can I make this process more fun? Now at this stage, if you follow these steps, you're 80% of the way there. You've acknowledged the problems and identified the problems you need to address, and you've changed the way you think about these things. So hopefully you're already much more confident than you were initially. But there's one more question we need to action, and this is the one that has the potential to tip you over the edge and transform you into a master communicator. Intrigued? I bet you are. So now let's revisit question 3, which asked if you had prepared more than was reasonably expected of you. Now I'm sure a few of you can at least relate to the idea that not everyone's born very confident and can talk for hours on a topic. Answer any question that's thrown at them, and to do so without their underarms flooding the room. But it's actually a lot simpler than you think. Let me explain. So I used to obsess over astronomy, space, galaxies, black holes, relativity, time dilation, all that good stuff. And my library is practically full of it. And if you notice, one of my favorite authors and science communicators is Neil deGrasse Tyson. I used to watch every talk, presentation, debate and show he had to offer. I actually went to his live show twice, mainly because I just loved how he explained things with such enthusiasm and passion. And it was only later when I started studying him as a person that I really learned what went on behind the scenes for him to be so damn effective. The last time I went to one of his live shows, throughout the entire talk, I noticed that this man never said or ah once. He never even stuttered, and every single question and curveball that the interviewer and the audience threw at him, he hit a home run with. It was to the point where my friends who I'd gone to see the show with, they were all like, wow, that was an amazing show, great talk, cool insights. And I was just thinking, how is this man so good at communicating? So calm and so collected the entire time, as though he's sitting in his living room, answering every question with ease, even the ones he claimed he didn't know the answers to. There was still something that he would respond with that somehow still provided some value to the person asking the question. And I'm sitting here thinking, how is this guy doing this? So I actually looked into it and studied his masterclass where he talks about science, thinking, and communication. And just hear for yourself what he has to say.
You need to be 10 times more prepared than anything you might invoke in order to look like you didn't prepare at all. You just walked right in. Make it look like you didn't need to prepare. 10 times. Factor of 10.
And this is what I mean when I say that in order to be a confident speaker, you need to prepare more than is reasonably expected of you. He then goes on to say this. Now listen carefully, this is important.
The same ideas, the same concepts can be framed, shaped in different ways depending on the audience. Depending on what makes that audience tick relative to this audience.
Right, so that means when you're preparing for your talk, you not only need to pay attention to the content and what things you'll be saying and what questions you'll answer, but you also need to pay attention to how you're going to say them, depending on your target audience. This is really important. And why do you think that is? Well, it's because the same sentence can resonate with one audience but completely go over the heads of another. So what's the point with all this? Recall what question 3 was: to prepare and practice your talk so much that you almost know it off by heart. To prepare for 50 questions when you know you'll only get 2. To know what angle to deliver it with. Maybe throwing in a few jokes here or there that you think your audience would get. And if they're a bit older, and maybe you know that in advance, you could look up a few things from their generation and make some sort of connection with what you're saying, with what they know and hold near and dear to their hearts. That's when you'll have the confidence required to stand up in front of a crowd and deliver your speech so well that it looked effortless, where you made it look like you didn't even need to prepare. And then others start asking, how did he do it? Just as I questioned my mentors. Alright, that's basically my 3-step process on how I became a confident speaker. These are the steps I took, or rather what I later realized I did, but on a much longer timeline, condensed for you in a few minute video. If you're still watching this, that's amazing, because I really want to put this video together for someone like you. Someone who's not looking for a cheap fix, but actually wants to know how to become confident, because it's such an important skill to have. Now I want to take a second to give you some words of encouragement, because if you've been completely overwhelmed with everything in this video so far, I don't blame you. Although the steps are seemingly straightforward, they're actually quite full on and do require for you to do a lot of work on them, right? It's not going to happen overnight, a week, or maybe even a year, and that's okay. Now you may take what you've learned from this video and say, damn, that's harder than I thought. And you know what? I agree, it is. Because believe it or not, I still struggle with being confident. I know the title is all clickbaity and how I became this unshakable, confident speaker, but the reality is that that's only me for a few hours in a given week. The rest of the time, I'm actively working on it just like you are. So this video is actually more of a case study and lessons for myself. Because although I know these steps work, I still need to actively take my own advice. And that's okay to admit. A lot of people you think are masters in their work are a work in progress. Some of your favorite artists say in their interviews that a few moments before they get on stage to perform in front of thousands of people, they're very nervous. But nervous in a good way, because they know they've put in the hours, and at that point, it's just about doing it. I still get nervous before every lecture, and even before small practicals and tutorial sessions I run. So if it makes you feel any better, just know I'm in the same boat as you. And you know what? I've realized it's okay, because that's quite literally the first steps of becoming a confident speaker. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you got any value out of it, I really appreciate a like. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video, and if you did, you might want to subscribe. I'm trying to see if I can hit 2K by mid 2024, so that'll be pretty cool. Alright, take care for now, and most importantly, stay curious.